Hi, and welcome. Today we are going to talk about the Stereorizer combinator. It's a combinator that is targeted to make mono things stereo. For example, it will make this sound to sound like this. Did you like what you heard? Then stick around. Alright, so I have this bass, this dirty talking bass, and it's a good sound, but I would like to have this sound to take a bit more space in the stereo field. So for that, I have multiple techniques at my disposal, and this combinator offers me 3 techniques. So let's explore what they are. Let's loop the same section as we did before for the cleaning EQ combinator. And so first of all, I'm going to insert the Stereorizer. All right, so as you can see, we have 3 ways of creating width. The first one is with a reverb. Actually, 3 reverb. We have type 1, type 2, type 3. So each of them will create a different tone or characteristics. So you can enable, disable any reverb you don't like. You have a listen button to only hear the reverb without the dry mono signal. You also have an extra width, which will engage a stereo imager from Reason and extend even more the width. It can be useful for those type of effects because we are not really creating width, we are just using a reverb to create early reflection to simulate the presence of a room around the source. We have the length of the reverb here for the type of reverbs, and we have also a ducking function. The same ducking function you can find in the vocal singer toolbox combinator. It's going to duck the reverb when the signal is heard, so it doesn't interfere too much with the signal, but you can disable the ducking for a full stereo effect. Next, we have the width 2, and you have a little graph here that explains what is going on. So basically, we are dividing the entire spectrum into 8 bands, and each bands are going to be panned left or right. So it creates an interesting effect, but it has an issue. It creates latency, and we are going to hear that in a second. We also have an extra width, so it's the same function as the width 1 for the reverb, so but this one is for the width 2. We can also modify the band's position, so we can modify the crossover points. We have a room reverb that we can add to that, and we have the knob for spreading the bands. So 0% will be every band in the center, so no difference, and 100% will be each band panned hard left, hard right. Next, we have the third width, which is a Haas effect. Much more conventional, will work without any latency. You can also enable the listen button to only hear the Haas effect. We can invert the Haas, so instead of delaying the left here, we are going to delay the right here. We have the width for modifying the delay value between the 2 ears, and we have a recenter and blend function which can help to recenter the image. So it's the same as the backing vocal function of the vocal singer toolbox. It will help if the image will seem to be too much on one side of the stereo field. You can push this button and hopefully it will recenter the image while keeping the stereo effect, of course. Alright, next we have a restore dynamics button, which is important because sometimes those effects will smear out the dry signal, and restoring dynamics will add a parallel version which is a bit compressed to the center, so we recover the signal. We have a button for matching the volume output, because turning those buttons will increase the output significantly. So it's always a good idea to have that enabled, and we also have a bypass button. All right, we also have a bypass button for each function if you really want to bypass one function, and you can combine the three. So you can add with a reverb, pan the bands, and then add a has effect. But most of the time you will only use one function or two, but three at the time. We'll see. All right, so let's play this track. The loop is ready. All right. So first, let's hear the reverb. First, I'm going to disable restore dynamics so we can only hear the effect. So it created a kind of a stereo effect, but it's a bit late because it's a reverb. Let's try to add some ducking. So it's an interesting result, but let's try to hear type 2. Let's hear type 3. Let's enable type 1 and 3, which is my favorite combination. Let's increase the length. And let's add some ducking. For the illustration, let's try to add the extra width as well. Let's now restore the dynamics. All right. Let's go to the width 2. So we are probably going to hear the latency effect I was talking about before. So let's dial in the amount. I haven't talked about the band spread. So we can spread only the high frequency, the mids, or the low frequency. I recommend you select only those two, as the low frequency doesn't pan really well. When you pan bass frequency, it sounds a bit odd. So it's often best to leave that off, but if you want to have a weird effect, even with the bass, you can enable the spreading of the low frequency. So as you can hear, there's a bit of latency. So by enabling the listen button, we can only hear the effect, so the latency is not heard, but it will be present in the song. Let's enable the extra width. And let's try to move the band position. So you can really find the best spot for your sound. For example, for this one, it better works with the band position located to the mids instead of the highs. You can mess around with the settings. Let's add the room reverb to here. That makes an interesting sound. And just for showing you what it does, when you move the spread button to 0%, you're going back to the original sound. All right. Let's move on to the has effect. So it's probably the one that I'm going to use for this bass line. Instant width. Like, I really love the has effect. Done properly, it's really nice. So when I don't have the recenter and blend, this is how it sounds. I can invert. And you probably hear when I invert the has that the sound seems coming from an ear or the other. So that's why you can enable the recenter and blend. So let's hear what it does. Maybe you can hear that the sound is a bit more centered now. All right, so let's hear in the context of the mix. I'm going to restore the dynamics as well for this one. Without, with. All right, so in the context of the mix, I'm going to increase the Haas effect. Let's make that up really obvious. So that's mono. That's stereo. I think it's really cool with the effect. But I don't really want to have the bass really all the way panned. I want maybe mixed a bit of it with the original, but not 100%. Okay, let's try bypassing the effect, so we hear the difference before and after. So that's before, after. All right, sounds pretty cool. Well, I'm going to leave you with playing the break number 2, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!